With the foundation done, could lift the bottom section that was joined together already back in place. And as before, it's tricky getting it to the really final location directly, so it was laid out close to where it was gonna be, and the tractor and small excavator was used to do the precise maneuvering at the end. We had to remove some of the extra supports. The joints here on the back side didn't turn out super well, and there was an extra cut in it also because my dad had been stressed when prepping it, and we only had two logs long enough, so we had to use what we had. So well, we're getting closer to the final position. Some tar paper was placed on the cement. Since the excavator had started pulling apart to check on that leaking cylinder, we brought down the forwarder, gave that some love with some grease in the wheels, and then the forwarder will do the lifting on assembly. It might be as good as the excavator. And here the three-wheeler that the camera was mounted on started rolling because my dad is too lazy to turn the steering to the side, so it kind of locks itself. But luckily it was stopped by the extension cord. So my dad had put the floor at the back of the outhouse section in place already, and we could start looking at fitting the first few logs. And we were also adding, this is not according to the book either, you should drill a lot bigger hole and have wooden peg going through if you want to secure it. It didn't have any of those on this assembly. That was lucky, so that was easy at least. But we are drilling smaller hole and using rebar, pieces of rebar, so it's a little easier to work with. And we rearranged the floor a little once we had that side piece in place. Yeah, the forwarder is more precise, and you can also twist the logs around because all of the logs that go on the short side of the building need to be twisted when it was assembled upside down. And the smaller pieces we took by hand. This one didn't want to go down really well enough, so we did a little trimming on a cross member there, or a support for the floor in the outhouse section. So we picked away at it, and piece by piece we got a little higher. Since there is an opening here in the one side, we could keep going quite high on one side and not have to move the machine around. It doesn't have the range to take all of the pieces from just one side. We will need to start driving it around a little towards the end to have the reach to put everything where we want it, but that's not too bad. Once we got down to the height of the scaffolding, we moved it around to start on the other side and put a few more of these rebar reinforcement in place, and then lifting. Here we had the most new pieces in this end of the building, so they look a bit different than the old wood, but my dad had some solution with some special paint or something to kind of age it quickly, make it look like nothing happened. Well, there is concrete at the bottom, so you can still see something happen, but maybe hide it a little better. So another small piece. Progress is going well, and we're almost done with what can be done in the beginning here. Then we ended up having to remove the scaffolding or move that over to the other side, because as my dad complains over and over, it will be so high, it will be like a cathedral in ceiling height in there. And sure, it will be a lot higher than in the old days, and it might look a little odd with a still quite narrow opening that we are going for, even if that will be a lot wider than it used to be. The doors in the old building was a lot wider than the opening, but now the doors will probably cover the entire opening, and we're wondering or discussing the doors, if we're gonna do the swing open doors that are stuck to the outside that it used to have. I kind of feel like sliding doors on the inside would be easier to work with. You wouldn't have issues with them not being able to open if you have a lot of snow, or you can always get in. Well, I'm sure there will be issues some days, but it's I think that would be more usable. Or if it should be some days, I think an electric automatic door would be nice, but that would also be a bit like you're breaking the old style, but we will see. Maybe you can buy some stickers on top of it that make it look like there is actually an old door there, even if it's something very modern. Here I'm guiding you all the way through one of the lifts, so it's slow going, but still the machines make it quite easy. I can't really imagine them building these old buildings by hand, lifting them up. I'm sure they had some block and tackle and stuff like that. And here one of the short pieces where we wrestle with it by hand, just because it's faster than taking the machine, because it's a little bit of work with by hand anyway to get it into the final location. Then we started getting into the long pieces, so we couldn't continue on that side, so it was moved around to the other side and took a few more pieces there. In a few places we ran into, and we'd seen it when we started, also a couple of pieces that had kind of gotten a little bit of a bend and getting a little bit pushed out from the other logs from years of very heavy snow loads and things like that, maybe, or they just had a natural bend and they were happy enough. And some of them we forced in a tiny bit. We drilled in a couple of screws in a wooden board. I missed that. I might have it later in the video, but and then you pushed that board in the middle. You see it had like 2 or 3 screws holding that top log. And then you push down on the bottom and secure it with a screw further down. Gave you lots of leverage and forcing the log in a little. We had some pieces in the corners to stop it from getting jumping out of the notches at the corners. We pressed on, a couple of small pieces were moved. My dad removed that leverage board, the wall at the back of the outhouse where you keep the barrels were put in place, and a few more pieces were lifted. A couple of the pieces, I think it was just one on the north side and 2 or 3 on the south side here that needed to be forced in a tiny bit, just to get things to align better. We also had a couple with a quite bad twist developed in them over the years, or the grains in the wood were not good to start with, and some of the pieces sure look ugly, but they have used them and we are reusing them. As for the twist, we had secured it in the other end first where it was straight, and then used the leverage method on the inside. I also hammered a little at it, it kind of made it move a tiny bit, and with the twist straightened out a little bit, we could drill it and add a piece of rebar. Here my dad is tightening it up a little more at the same time as I'm giving it a little gentle tap, and then we drilled and rebar. So, and when we let go of it, you could feel that the log is resisting it a little bit. It's straighter now, and I don't think it will hurt anything. It will be, hopefully it will last for another 50 years now. It's probably been there over 100 to start with, even if we are not sure which date is the build date, because there are multiple in there. I think the oldest is 1892, but there is a bigger one that's 1912 that might be the build year. So, and we pushed on. Here we get to take another long piece. I think this one had quite a bad twist in it also, so it got a few pieces of rebar before we were happy with the fit of it. Yeah, and it didn't want to go down fully, but there were a few kind of pieces that had come undone from the log that held it up, so we removed those and the fit was a lot better. Back in it goes, and then as I said, I think this one, but I don't have that on video. I've missed sections because I haven't been super on it to keep the batteries on, and there has been so many logs moved that if I missed a few here and there, it didn't really matter. A few of the pieces now that are moved the furthest, you need to move the machine also with the piece, but that worked fine also. The excavator would have had the range to just swing it over, but it was easier to pick up and just move it. So that worked fine. And we're getting close to the finish, not that many pieces left. This one looked really kind of rotten for being that high up, but we're reusing it. Hopefully it won't cause issues in the future. Then it was dinner time and we started a fire and cooked something outside that day. This was actually recorded yesterday, so it's quite up to date with what I'm doing or we are doing. Another long piece going in place, and I'm trying to operate it quite slowly. Then the corner struts, or they are moved over from the bottom, that will be the top now. They will be just put in place to see that the shape of the building is correct to what it was when we started disassembling. That will ensure that the roof should fit nicely when the crane comes to lift it back on, because that's what's left now regarding the construction. Well, there are a few things with doors and such, but the corner over here, it was only one long piece, long enough to cover the entire length on the front side of the building, and the corner was a little too far out, so we had to use some ratchet strap and force that in a little bit. So but that was no real surprise because it had all those layers to get a little out of shape. Here what's the inside look like, and we built part of the walls inside the outhouse section. This last long one didn't really want to sit super well, but hopefully the weight will push it down. We also added the screw, and then the last piece. There is a bit of groundwork with some material outside of the building to get the entrance and so on a little easier, and some more on the backside to support the foundation.